Ghostwire Tokyo has been an interesting proposal since Tango Gameworks and Bethesda Softworks introduced it at their E3 showcase in 2019. We knew it dealt with paranormal legends in urban Tokyo, but it's quite the far cry from the intense and visceral horror Tango previously handled in the likes of The Evil Within. Does Bethesda Softworks and Tango Gameworks present a satisfying open world full of paranormal adventure? Or is this ghost story best laid to rest? Find out in our review. Hey folks, if you enjoyed this video review, be sure to hit that like, subscribe, notification button. It's 3 small clicks for you, but means the world to us. Let's get started. Ghostwire Tokyo begins with protagonist Akito on his way to visit his sister Mari at the hospital, where he gets into a deadly motorcycle accident that almost kills him. At the same time, a spirit known as KK is in desperate search of an earthly vessel to possess. Finding Akito weak enough to be possessed, KK tries to take him over, only to find that he has some fight left. Akito resists total possession, and his body ends up housing both KK and himself. As this happens, a fog sweeps Shibuya, disintegrating all human life, so that only their spirits remain. Demons known as visitors quickly descend upon the spirits to try to take them into the underworld. Because of their sudden living dead state, KK and Akito survive the fog unharmed, and KK is able to lend Akito his spiritual power to fight back. The cause of all this chaos is a devilish fellow known as Hanya, who has engaged in a ritual to attempt to open the gates of the underworld. It just so happens that Akito's comatose sister is a good catalyst for completing the ritual. KK was also fighting against Hanya before he died, with Akito unable to fight visitors without KK's spiritual power, and KK unable to survive outside Akito's body. They end up in an uneasy alliance to help save Mari and stop Hanya. Once Ghostwire Tokyo is done setting the stage, it casts you off into the streets of Shibuya, which are beautifully designed. The fog that descended onto the city literally whisked all people to nothingness in the middle of their lives. Everything is still active as it was when the incident occurred sans human life, and Tango Gameworks does an amazing job of presenting a city full of lights, sound, hustle, and bustle, where all operators and inhabitants suddenly disappeared. Street intersections are often full of car wrecks. Music echoes out of nearby bars and eateries. Shopping centers sparkle with neon lighting, and clothes, baby carriages, bikes, and other everyday life items are left cattywampus in every corner of the urban sprawl. It's stark and beautiful at the same time, and accented even more by Tango's liberal use of fog and rain, which bend and reflect light and imagery gorgeously.
何か入ってるのか?
食べ物がある。
使えるものは使っておけ。こんな時だからな。
それもそうだな。
That's not to say Ghostwire Tokyo's city is completely empty. The spirits have pretty much taken over where life once was. Mostly, that can be seen in the form of visitors, who take on a number of forms influenced by the lore and mythology of Japanese demons. It begins with blank-faced, umbrella-wielding fellows that remind me of Slender Man, but it continues with the likes of wraiths, child spirits, and enormous, ruthless women wielding massive scissors, to name a few. You run into a lot of these visitors frequently, but Ghostwire Tokyo does a pretty good job of introducing new and more daunting threats throughout the game. Not all of Ghostwire's demons are malicious. Some take on the form of more friendly or benign presences. Throughout the city are Nikomata cat spirits that run shops and help keep you stocked up on healing food and weapons if you pay the price. There are also Oni mountain spirits, Kodama tree spirits, Kappa water spirits, and a number of further encounters inspired by Japanese lore. Each is well presented in their own encounters and are fascinating takes on common stories. In fact, pretty much most of Ghostwire Tokyo is a journey through urban and traditional Japanese mythology. Some are more fleshed out than others, but the constant blend of Tango Gameworks' take on the paranormal into the depths of its massive urban setting is quite fun and often spectacular in terms of visuals and engagement. It even sparsely uses music outside of environmental sounds, except for when encounters call for it, and when the music does come up, it's quite intense and effective.
何あれ猫
あれは妖怪だな。人がいなくなったから出てきやがったのか。
The only thing I would say drags on Ghostwire Tokyo's presentation is that sometimes it tries to do too much, and the performance on the PS5 seems to suffer a bit for it. The game has both a performance and quality mode, the former prioritizing a high frame rate, and the latter offering enhanced ray tracing effects while trying to stay at 30 FPS. Quality mode is gorgeous and wonderful for screenshots, but performance mode doesn't look half bad either. However, there were quite a few number of times where even in performance mode, a large amount of activity would cause some choppiness. It wasn't enough to ruin a good time, but the more hectic enemy encounters with a lot going on did chew up the performance a bit. Other than that, it's a gorgeous game with a gorgeous variety of visuals, sound, and action.
なんだよそれ
あ、何人消えようが俺には関係ないがな。
The main beat of Ghostwire Tokyo is chasing after Hanya, fighting off visitors, and saving innocent spirits. To that end, this game is played like an open-world first-person shooter. KK supplies Akito with a number of powers and gear to use in a variety of situations. You begin with wind powers that can be shot like rapid-fire bolts, or charged to fire homing bolts. But you get further tools like water and fire elements with their own properties, a bow that can be charged for powerful long-range shots, and talismans that can freeze enemies, distract them, and make them weaker. Killing visitors means chipping away at their forms to reveal a spiritual core that you can rip out at close or long range to kill them. You can also just blast them to bits with liberal use of your gear. Taking their core heals you, but it takes time to do, and can leave you open to damage. That said, there's also stealth in the game, and you can sneak up on a visitor to rip out their core in one strike, and even the playing field before fighting the rest. Ultimately, Ghostwire's combat presents you with a lot of good options to go about it, and a good variety of threats to keep you on your toes. There's also the fog. It's thick throughout the city and keeps you from exploring freely. Entering it will damage you until you get out of it. That fog obscures some of your main objectives, and so you have to head to Torii gates and shrines hidden around the city to cleanse them. Doing so purifies the area of fog, allowing you to explore the city and pursue the main quest. It also opens up a multitude of side tasks. The spirits of the people who were whisked away are everywhere in Ghostwire Tokyo. By using paper dolls, you can rescue those spirits and bring them to one of KK's friends to save them, supplying you with experience to level up and increase your abilities with your spirit powers and gear.
結構大変だったね
その分苦労が報われただろ
You also find quests from lingering spirits that task you with any number of encounters based on the aforementioned Japanese mythology and lore. Some are more fleshed out, and others are simply quick romps. I particularly liked the one where we took a ghost train to an ethereal last stop, where a malicious spirit awaited in a reality-contorting abyss. Ghostwire Tokyo is at its best when paranormal activity distorts the world in real time as you are chasing the truth of any given predicament, giving it effects very similar to the best parts of games like Fear. Unfortunately, not every one of Ghostwire Tokyo's side quests are riveting. There's one where you have to chase down Tanuki raccoon spirits hidden throughout the city. They can only be recognized by their tail sticking out of common objects, which they are mimicking. Sometimes you can pray at shrines to reveal their locations, but you can't do that with all of them. Ghostwire Tokyo's urban sprawl is such a chaotic mess that I found it really hard to spot objects out of place like that. The game also has a ton of other collectathon side quests that I think just drag down the overall pace of the game. They're still pretty charming, but the sheer amount of them wears out the welcome in an otherwise gripping paranormal adventure. Ghostwire Tokyo is, first and foremost, beautiful. Its realistic city elements, blended with ethereal and supernatural, create a cornucopia of amazing visuals and sound. Even when the hardware struggles to keep up sometimes, it's never so much so that the game loses the sense of mystery and awe. Just as well, a big part of that is Tango Gameworks' creative adaptation of Japanese mythology and lore. Their takes on monsters, demons, ghost stories, and various legends come to life in a massive variety of fascinating ways. Whether it's in situations you encounter, the way you fight against them, or the elements that aid you, I will say it's a little bogged down in video game chores in the open world. However, when you're on the trail of the main quest, or any given side story, Ghostwire Tokyo is a compelling adventure worth seeing through to the final spiritual release. Hey folks, if you enjoyed this video review, be sure to hit that like, subscribe, notification button. It's 3 small clicks for you, but means the world to us. For more video reviews and everything else gaming related, you're already in the right place. You're on Shacknews.com.